My heart froze, not because of fear, but because of what I saw. My little girl, my Olivia, was lying in the grass, her yellow dress soaked in red. Blood streamed from her mouth, and her two front teeth were gone. And standing over her, fists clenched, was Mrs. Baker, the president of our HOA, the woman who smiled during meetings. But now, she looked like a monster. I heard her voice low and venomous. "You people don't belong here," she spat. Her words were acid. Her presence, ice. That moment shattered everything, and from that day forward, I knew I had to fight back. Before you hear the full story, comment below where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe, because this is only the beginning. I was folding laundry when I heard the scream. It wasn't a regular cry. It was raw. It was afraid. It was Olivia. I ran, quickly, quicker than I ever had, and when I made the turn into our yard, time froze. There she stood, my daughter, 11 years old, Down syndrome, her body trembling, her mouth bleeding. I fell to my knees. "Olivia!" She regarded me with wide, glassy eyes, blood on her lips, tears in her eyes, and then I heard her, the HOA queen herself, Mrs. Baker, pointing at the tiny spot of grass between our homes. "She was on my property," she snapped. "I've warned you before. Keep this child in hand." My voice broke. "You struck her? You struck a disabled child?" But her face never changed, only cold. Revulsion. "You people don't belong in Oak Hill Estates," she yelled. Neighbors were staring now. "She doesn't belong here," she continued, pointing at my daughter like she was nothing. Olivia reached for my hand, shaking. "Mommy," she whispered, her lips puffy, bloody. "Mean lady, hurt me." And in that instant, something within me broke. Because this wasn't merely about HOA regulations. It wasn't about grass lines. It was about hate. And I wasn't going to remain silent. She said I'm not even supposed to live in my own house. That was it. Something within me snapped wide open. This was not about Olivia's teeth. It wasn't even about the blood. It was about something more fundamental. My daughter's right to be safe, to be noticed. "Call 911, I said to Mr. Wilson, our neighbor. "Call the police and an ambulance. My child was attacked." Mrs. Baker laughed. "Attacked? Don't be silly," she said, dusting imaginary dirt off her overpriced designer blouse. "I hardly touched her. She fell, on her own." Then with a smile, "Good luck with that call. My husband golf buddies with the police chief every weekend." And that's when I knew this wouldn't be easy. This would be war. Police arrived quick, but not quick enough for my bleeding daughter. Officer Taylor emerged, eyes surveying the crowd. Mrs. Baker was already ringed. Her group of HOA acquaintances whispered like snakes in the grass. "She assaulted my child," I declared without thinking, holding Olivia tight. "She hit her, broke her teeth out, because she was standing on the grass." Mrs. Baker's voice sliced through mine, a smile-wrapped, polished lie. "That's not true. The girl was trashing my flowers. I asked her to stop, that's all. She tripped. You know how these special children are. Clumsy." Clumsy? My fist tightened. "My daughter has Down syndrome," I told her, trembling with anger. "She doesn't break things. She's delicate, and she wasn't anywhere close to your flowers." But Mrs. Baker advanced, suddenly speaking to Officer Taylor as an old friend. "They've admitted it themselves. They can't handle the child. This has been an issue in Oak Hill for years. We all have to consider our property values." My heart fell. Officer Taylor shifted in his seat. He glanced at Mrs. Baker, at me, then away. "Ma'am," he spoke slowly, "did anybody see what occurred?" I turned, dozens of eyes, watching, listening, but no one stirred. Not Mr. Wilson, not the old people across the street, not the teenager with the phone half off the hook. Nobody. "Did anybody see?" I asked once more, my voice breaking. Silence. They all gazed down, avoiding my eyes, avoiding the truth. because they knew she had power here. She could find them, harass them, destroy their lives with HOA rules. And her husband, he played golf with the system. I need to take my daughter to the hospital, I finally said, scooping Olivia up into my arms. But this isn't over. This isn't over, I growled through clenched teeth. Mrs. Baker smiled, a smile that cuts deeper than any words. I think it is, she said coldly. And maybe this will convince you to reconsider whether this neighborhood is suitable for your circumstances. I cradled Olivia in my arms as I walked her to the car, her sobs trembling against my chest. I heard her again, louder now, for the crowd behind me. Let this be a warning, she declared, facing the neighbors, that we have standards in Oak Hill Estates, standards we all agreed to when we moved in. The ER physician didn't even attempt to conceal his rage when he saw Olivia's mouth. 2 teeth, missing, gums, torn, trauma, unmistakable. This is assault, he stated bluntly. I have to report this. Please do, I whispered, grasping my daughter's shaking hand as new tears streamed down her face. The responding officer didn't care, didn't write much of anything down. The doctor gave him a stern glance, then addressed me. Let me guess. Oak Hill Estates? My eyebrows shot up. You know her? He let out a sigh. Yes, my sister stayed there for a year, moved out because of her. That woman is in charge there like she owns it. But to strike a child, this time she's crossed the line. His voice hardened. I'm not going to let this report fall on deaf ears. I'm going to send it directly to the district attorney, not just the police around here. For the first time since this horror began, I felt it. Hope. A small, flickering flame in the darkness. But it was short-lived. When we arrived home that evening, something was affixed to our front door. An orange notice. Violation, unapproved yard changes. Fine, $500. Second offense, $1,000. I stared at it in disbelief. We hadn't changed anything in our yard, not in the 3 years we'd lived there. But by morning, there was another. Violation, unapproved house paint color. Fine, $750. We hadn't painted a single wall. By the end of the week, 7 violation notices. Total, over $4,000 in fines. The message couldn't be clearer. Mrs. Baker wasn't going to wait for us to leave. She was going to drive us out. But something she didn't realize was this. Before Olivia was born, before my husband died of cancer and left me barely making it, I lived another kind of life. I was a civil rights lawyer, and I didn't forget how to battle. Fade to black, voiceover. This is more than about HOA regulations. This is about power, about injustice, and about what goes on when one woman decides that she's had enough. Subscribe and like to find out what I did next, and how one mother's battle shook Oak Hill Estates to the core. Connections. I still had them, and I still knew how to fight. When I phoned my former colleague Mark Johnson, I could hear the outrage in his voice building as I recounted everything that had happened. This is blatant discrimination, he said, his tone biting as he scanned the violation notices I'd sent him. They're picking on you because of Olivia's disability. That's against housing laws. Can we document it? I asked, my voice trembling but firm. Mark's eyes grew cold. These bogus violations are a good beginning, but we need more. We need to demonstrate a pattern, a record of this, and we need witnesses. I hesitated. Nobody's going to talk about her. They're all intimidated. Mark cracked a grim smile. Well then, we'll show them something worth being afraid to stay silent. Our initial move was straightforward but effective. I mounted a mini security camera pointed straight at our front lawn. It was legal and it would capture anything said near the property line. Any word, any movement. Then we formally complained of discrimination to the housing department and a lawsuit on my own behalf against Mrs. Baker and the HOA for harassment and assault. But my best tool was used by someone I never thought I'd hear from. The next day after our complaints were lodged, I received an anonymous message. The title on the subject line simply said, "We're not all like her." I clicked to open the video they'd sent along, my heart racing as I viewed. It was a tape of a homeowners meeting 2 months prior. There was Mrs. Baker, standing at the front of a packed room, venom dripping from her words. "I don't care what the law says regarding reasonable accommodations," she sneered, eyes flashing around the room. "If we allow one of those disabled children move in here, property values will decline. Bottom line, we have to send the message that Oak Hill is not the kind of place where some people belong." My stomach fell as I saw several homeowners nod in assent. A single voice, soft but probing, asked, "But can't we be sued for discrimination?" Mrs. Baker laughed. Her laughter was icy, cunning. "My husband takes care of these things. Believe me, nobody's going to sue us and win. There are means of ensuring this remains." Hush. Hush. I locked up. The evidence. The smoking gun. This was it. Problems vanish without ever actually saying what we do mean. I sent the video to Mark straight away. "Is that sufficient?" I asked. His answer was instant. "It's perfect, but we should scale up." And so, Justice for Olivia went online. The next day, a simple website appeared. A picture of my daughter's bloodied face, her innocent eyes filled with confusion, the doctor's report, the damning video from the meeting, copies of every fake violation notice. And the page had a simple but powerful message. "Mrs. Baker, the leader of Oak Hill Estates, punched my 11-year-old daughter with Down syndrome for walking on her lawn. Then she informed us that we don't fit in the neighborhood. Now she's trying to use the homeowners association to force us out. This is discrimination." I posted the link on all the social media outlets I could find, tagging local news organizations and civil rights organizations. By the evening, our tale had been shared 1,000 times. By the morning, there was a news van parked in front of our home. A young journalist named Sarah Chin came to visit us, her eyes brimming with compassion, but her voice stern. "This is quite disturbing," she told us after hearing our tale. "Has the Homeowners Association or Mrs. Baker issued any statement?" I nodded my head. "Nothing official." But then I added, my voice strained, "There have been repercussions." Repercussions began about midnight. Somebody had thrown a brick through our living room window. Attached to it was a note, "Get out." Or worse. I had the police on the phone right away. This time a new officer arrived, Officer Rivera. She was older, with warm eyes and a stern demeanor. She looked at the broken glass and then at the note, her expression hardening. "This is getting worse," she said, snapping pictures of the brick and the message. She paused, then added, "By chance, this matches 3 other cases in this neighborhood over the past year. All families who complained against the Homeowners Association." I stared at her in surprise. "You've been building a case?" She nodded grimly. "But no one would make an official complaint. No one had the courage to go public." Her eyes locked into mine with understanding. "Until now." I was standing between him and Olivia, who sat quietly, staring at the television in the living room. "I want to say sorry," he said. His voice weighed down with regret as we sat at the kitchen table. I eyed him wary, waiting for the true motive behind his apology. "Not for my wife," he went on, his shaking hands somewhat more under control. "But for myself. I allowed this to happen. I knew what was happening in that neighborhood, and I did nothing to prevent it." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my wariness increasing. He pushed a small drive onto the table, sliding it across to me. "Because there's more. Much more." He stopped, waiting for what I assumed was his cue. "Financial records indicating the misuse of homeowners' funds, emails regarding the displacement of unwanted residents, bribery records to local authorities." His tone dropped, as if ashamed. "I can't continue with this." I gazed at the drive. "Why would I trust you?" His gaze locked with mine in cold honesty. "You shouldn't," he said flatly. "But you should act on this knowledge. My wife injured your child. Nothing will ever make that okay. But perhaps this will help ensure that it doesn't happen to another person." And like a flash, he was gone. I phoned Mark at once, then the DA. 6 months later, trial commenced. By then, 5 of the 7 homeowners board members had taken plea deals, agreeing to testify against Mrs. Baker. The evidence against her was overwhelming. The courtroom was packed. Families from our neighborhood, disability rights advocates, and reporters from all over the country. But Mrs. Baker sat there, stone-faced, at the defense table, her expensive lawyer whispering frantically in her ear. When Olivia took the stand, the room fell completely silent. She now had new dental implants, still in process of being adjusted. But she talked intelligibly and without wavering, describing the gruesome things that had happened. "I was simply picking a dandelion," she started, her voice unshaken, "to wish. And the nasty lady came outside. She used bad language. She said I was dirty and bad, and I shouldn't be permitted to live there. Then she punched me quite hard." Her voice broke, and for a moment she hesitated, tears pricking at her eyelids. "It hurt so much. And then my teeth were gone, and there was blood, and she said I deserved it." The whole courtroom wept. Everyone except Mrs. Baker, who sat unmoved, her face expressionless. When the verdict was read, it was swift and merciless, guilty on all counts. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, didn't blink. 5 years in prison, $2 million in damages to Olivia, and Mrs. Baker can never serve on any homeowners board again. The coup de grace was when the judge directed a federal probe into the discriminatory policies of Oak Hill Estates Homeowners Association. She surveyed the courtroom. "This kind of behavior has no place in our society." And just like that, everything began to change. The very fabric of Oak Hill Estates was being torn apart. A new homeowners board was elected, one with clear rules against discrimination. The community was slowly starting to rebuild, brick by brick. But there was something new now. The burden of what had been revealed was too much. Mrs. Baker's hold on the neighborhood had been broken, but the reverberations of her deeds would never completely disappear. The center opened up new inclusive programs for kids of every ability, and something amazing happened. Property values, which Mrs. Baker and her adherents had once feared would plummet, instead increased. Families moved into Oak Hill Estates in droves, attracted by the new sense of community and reputation for being a friendly, diverse neighborhood. 3 months following the trial, we organized a block party. Our neighbors' simple but compelling idea was the theme: everyone belongs. Initially, Olivia was reserved, still embarrassed by her new teeth. But when the neighborhood children closed in around her, inviting her to join their play, something magical occurred. She smiled, really smiled, her joy shining as she laughed and played. It was a smile that reached her eyes, a smile of unadulterated joy. Watching her, a woman I knew from down the street came up to me, her face full of guilt. "I must apologize," she said softly. "I witnessed what occurred that day. I witnessed Mrs. Baker striking your daughter, and I remained silent." I glared at her, the question that had plagued me escaping. "Why?" She lowered her eyes, her hands fidgeting anxiously. "Fear," she confessed, "but seeing you struggle, seeing you resist being driven away, it did something to me, to all of us." Her gaze scanned the party, drinking in the laughter, the music, the children of every ability playing together. "You showed us that belonging isn't bestowed upon you by people like Mrs. Baker. It's something you take for yourself." That evening, when I was tucking Olivia into bed, she asked me something that shattered my heart and mended it too. "Mommy, do I really belong here now? Forever?" I stroked her hair back from her forehead, in awe of her strength and bravery. "You belong anywhere you want to be, my brave girl, and you always have." She smiled, her new teeth sparkling in the dim light. "I'm glad we didn't run away. I'm glad we stayed and fought." "Me too," I whispered, embracing her, "because sometimes the battle isn't about you. Sometimes it's about all the people who've ever been told they don't belong. And sometimes winning that battle makes everything different." Eventually, Oak Hill Estates was no longer the neighborhood it had once been. Mrs. Baker's influence collapsed, and the community turned into a testament to acceptance and harmony. The battle we had waged, not only for Olivia, but for each child and grown-up, whoever had been relegated to the side, ignited a change that extended far beyond our small corner of the universe. Olivia had taught me something I hadn't anticipated. At times, the greatest wars are waged silently, with love, with courage, and with a steadfast conviction that everyone should feel like they belong. And ultimately, those are the wars that alter lives for good.